Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at John Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. Okay, live on AMP after a Monday Night Football. It's not a doubleheader because doubleheader means there's a gap between the games. The Monday night, multiple games. Eagles win and the Bengals win as well. We will dive into that and some other stuff that happened from the NFL weekend. But first, 3 and Out podcast with me, John Middlekauff. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen. Appreciate everyone that has. Hammer that subscribe button. If you're watching this thing on the Volumes YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to the page. Leave a comment below. Hammer that like button. Appreciate all you guys interacting with the page. Rocking the Volume. Thevolume.com also has our merch. I'm rocking the hat right now. Nice little flex fit. So go check that out. And before we dive into a lot of football talk, because there's a lot going on right now as we head into week 4. Week 4, this season's flying by. Do you want to go to an NFL game? I mean, you got a lot of games left, but for some of you guys, depending on where you live, you want to go before it gets super cold because we're like a month away from some of those Northeast teams, some of those Midwest teams. It gets awfully chilly. Well, I got you. Go to your app store and download the Gametime app. They're the official ticketing app of the 3 and Out podcast. And they are because you guys have hammered the promo code John. So when you go to an event, when you go to a concert, when you go to anything, and you sign up for your first pair of tickets, when you use the promo code John at checkout, you get $20 off. So it's really easy to use, interactive maps that include the price points where you want to sit at any given event, and go have a good time. College football, you live on the West Coast, you want to watch prime time. You live on the East Coast, you want to watch probably not Zach Wilson. Whoever you want to watch, use Gametime concerts, comedy shows as well. Promo code John. While this game was the early game, I would say it had the headlighting team from the night. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles, who go 3-0 to join the Miami Dolphins and the 49ers as the only undefeated teams left in the NFL, which I don't have my record books up, but only 3 teams left on September 25th. Like a lot of teams are going down left and right. Usually it feels like we got more than this going into October, but we got the Eagles, we got the Dolphins, and we got the 49ers. And my number one takeaway from the night, and we'll dive into a little deeper in Jalen, their offensive play calling, which has been a hot topic in Philadelphia. I thought tonight was a muscle flex by Howie Roseman. I mean, that team is so talented, it's stupid. To get Jalen Carter at pick 9, and we talked about this around the draft, right? There were a lot of teams that were not equipped to take him. They weren't falling far enough along in their development. Teams like the Detroit Lions, the Atlanta Falcons, it was too big of a risk. But the Eagles, because of the way they've been built from Howie and really his entire front office, they've been one of the better front offices for a long time now. There aren't many GMs who are true power brokers in the league. And when I say that, I mean, when you look at most teams, their head coach is the ultimate decision maker, even if they're very tight with the GM. Andy Reid and Brett Veach, it's like a father and son. The relationship that John Schneider and Pete Carroll have. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are tied at the hip. Yet at the end of the day, if it really comes down to it, the guy in charge is the one making $15, $17, $18 million, the head coach. Yet in Philadelphia, the guy in charge is Howie. And you saw tonight, Jalen Carter, who I saw this stat toward the end of the game. I mean, that guy looked like a man out there playing Tampa, who has a lot of big-time players. His talent is just completely freakish. We knew that, but they were equipped to pull the trigger when the draft came, and it's, reaping its reward right now because only Javon Hargrave, who was just on the Eagles, has more pressures from a defensive tackle position. Like, this guy already is trending toward being a star. DeAndre Swift. Like, I liked what the Lions did. They moved on from him. They took a guy who's going to be a really good player. But Howie Roseman got that guy. They flip-flop picks in the 200s. I'm sorry, I don't care about picks in the 200s. And he gave him a 4th-round pick in 2025. You see how good that guy has been these last 2 weeks for him? It's clear they found their established starting running back now, who is shining for them to go along with 2-star wide receivers. And I think one thing Howie does a really good job of, and Belichick did this forever, is not worrying about what I paid for the guy. Because in the NFL, you're either paying a guy in free agency or you're acquiring a guy with, draft equity, and you're paying him that way, whether it's your first round pick, a trade for picks. If it's not working for your franchise, just like in a lot of industries, it becomes a sunk cost. But in football, unlike I think a lot of industries, because you're dealing with people, like the asset is the person, you go, I drafted this guy. So many GMs. Listen, most people listening, their team has held on to a guy for way too long. When it's clear it's not working. Jalen Reagor, awful pick. Well, what do they do basically a year later? They pivot, they trade him, they get A.J. Brown. They're not afraid to not only wave the white flag, say they were wrong, and move on. And this organization right now, from a talent standpoint, is just incredibly deep. It really is. At the line of scrimmage, they dominate. Their skill positions are sweet. Blankenship, this guy's making plays. I'm like, who is this? Small school guy, undrafted free agent, made the team last year as a special teamer, and has moved into a starting role. Texting some people on the staff, they're like, yeah, we love the guy. Smart, tough, fits right in. Undrafted free agent, starting for the Eagles. So it's premium players like Jalen Carter, Swift, once upon a time, a relatively high pick from Georgia, right, to A.J. Browns and Devontae Smith, and then you got undrafted free agents. That's an organization that's on the same page with a ton of talent, and it's just going to come down to, there were moments tonight, not trying to overreact, where it still looks like he's working it out, and that'd be the quarterback. He made a couple throws today, his first touchdown pass, where he kind of avoided some pressure, stepped up, and threw a dime to a guy I honestly don't really know much about. It wasn't AJ or Devontae. You're like, okay, that's the guy. Then there were a lot of plays that go, that's not exactly the MVP version. So this feels like a player, because their talent on their team, Super Bowl worthy. They can win it all. We all knew that in the offseason. Their roster was so deep. It's going to come down to, he played a Super Bowl winning game, right, against the Chiefs. His defense let him down. But the player they have right now at quarterback is still working out the kinks. He looks like a guy who played 0 snaps in the preseason and is rusty. And really, this month of September, their next game included, probably going to look like that. I think where they're betting is we will hit our stride November, December. He can get back to playing that level, and we can make our Super Bowl run. You see, because the Cowboys, I mean, they're losing at Arizona. We don't plan on doing that. And we don't think the 49ers will either. So now we're kind of looking at it, the hierarchy, assuming Jalen kind of gets it rolling again. I'm not saying he was bad tonight, but I think we have to acknowledge he doesn't look like his MVP self right now, tonight. I know he didn't win the MVP last year, but let's face it, he probably would have if he didn't get hurt. And I just haven't quite seen that guy. You've seen glimpses, and you saw him tonight against Tampa. But it's hard if you're an Eagles fan to know the talent on our team. The cream always rises. And the key is if Jalen can just keep his head on straight in that unit, that guy's an unblockable force with other really good defenders. And obviously they got good DBs. The offensive skill positions are just loaded. And the quarterback, he's a guy who's proven over and over he's a guy you bet on. So if you're an Eagles fan, you got to be feeling pretty good. And on the flip side, listen, Tampa's weird. I picked them to suck this year. Might be wrong, because clearly if their guys don't get injured, they have a lot of high-end players. But I think you saw tonight, at the end of the day, their head coach and their quarterback are probably perfectly suited to be number twos. I think Baker Mayfield, I thought one of Colin's crazy takes this offseason was he should retire and go work at Fox or one of the networks and be a college football star. And he'll eventually do that. But I don't think, no matter how up and down your career is as a NFL player, it impacts your stardom once you go into media about college, right? Now, Baker, through the first 2 weeks, looked a lot better. Tonight, he kind of looked like the old Baker Mayfield. And that's usually what backup players, even good backups, they're backup for a reason. They have highs and then they have lows. They can't sustain really good play, whether it's at home, whether it's on the road. You start playing better teams, you get exposed. So tonight, pretty average player. That doesn't diminish what he did the first couple weeks. I think pretty sure a week ago they played the Bears, who we all know looks like a JV high school team. So Todd Bowles was around him in Philly. I'm a big fan of the guy. And as a defensive coordinator, I think he's elite. He's proven when he's the defensive coordinator for Bruce Arians, he is, if not the best, a top 2 or 3 guy. Not everyone's meant to be a head coach. And I think over the course of time, when you have a coordinator and you have a backup quarterback, no matter how much talent, Evans is a stud, Godwin's a stud, Vita Vea's a stud, Devin White, not sure why he ran out of bounds on his interception. I never got a great look. I was doing something, and I look over, the pick happens. I was waiting for a replay. They didn't show a good replay. I felt like he could have got some more yards, but that's a topic for a different day. Winfield, they got players. I just don't know if they're going to be good enough at the quarterback and head coaching position. Now, they play the Saints this week. I would imagine, if I had to take an educated guess right now, Jameis Winston plays. I know Dennis Allen said they're not going to rule out Derek Carr, who has the AC sprain, avoided the broken collarbone, which I think most of us thought was on the table. But that's a big game. And even with Jameis, especially at New Orleans, I'm going to take the Saints. We're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw 5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action. So download the app now and sign up with the code JOHN, J-O-H-N. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official betting partner of the NFL. With code JOHN, J-O-H-N. The crown is yours. Let's go to the second game. One thing you learn in scouting and being around a team and players is the impact of intangibles, right? My mom can see that Jamar Chase can break a tackle, or Aaron Donald is unblockable when he gets, a good get off, right? Or Mike Evans can make incredible catches. Most people can see that. The thing that's hard to judge, and it's why so many teams are better than other teams at not just acquiring players in the draft, but building a team, is understanding the personalities, the character of guys. And I don't mean character like looking you in the eye, shaking your hand, saying please and thank you, opening the door for women. I'm talking about football discipline, everyday grinding, having a passion for it, and doing everything humanly possible to play at all times. That's what separates the good from the great, right? A lot of people have a lot of talent in the NFL. Some clearly have more. There are only so many Trent Williams or Lane Johnsons. But for the most part, a lot of guys that start, the margin and the difference between, a really solid starter and a Pro Bowl guy isn't that different. And I think you saw tonight, a lot of people have been making fun of Joe Burrow and the contract because he got paid and then he immediately looks crappy. Then he gets injured. And it's like they're taking their money back. When you fully believe in a human being, you have no problem going through some shitty times. It's like the first couple games with Jalen Hurts. I promise you this, the Eagles ain't worried because they believe in the guy. Same thing with the Bengals. And I saw a guy tonight, I thought he played a little bit better as the game went on, who probably shouldn't have been out there, who clearly looks like a guy who's not close to being a 100%. But this is not the NBA where you use every excuse not to play. This is football. You only get so many spots. And guys have to be dragged off the field. And Joe Burrow, it felt like 3 or 4 days ago, no chance. They're going to have to go with the backup. And by about 24 hours ago, it's well, keep your eye. This guy just won't be denied. And early on the night, you're like, why is he even out there? Well, he's out there because that's the type guy you want to pay. Football means everything to him. I always love when people in the media complain around draft time when anonymous scouts talk about he's got too much of a balanced life. He likes 2 other things. Obviously, people like their family and may like to fish or golf on the side. But when I'm thinking about paying a guy $100, $150, $200 million, I would like them to be obsessed with the thing I'm paying them for. And you saw tonight Joe Burrow Dude, eat, breathes, and sleeps football. And that is an old school mentality, even at quarterback. And I think when you look at the top guys, there was a moment this weekend. I was staying at my mom's house, and I don't know how you guys do it. You people with only one TV. I'm trying to watch 4 games. I got a computer out, an iPad out. My mom's only got one TV. She doesn't have YouTube TV. I'm trying to keep up with everything because I know I got to talk to Colin, got to stay locked in. And I go to the back to grab something, and I come out. The Chiefs are just blowing out the Bears. My mom goes, Mahomes got hurt. He got hurt. And I'm like, are you serious? So then I immediately go to Twitter, see him limping around. Of course he comes back out and keeps playing, and we've seen that with his dislocated knee. He only missed Josh Allen, toughness, Lamar Jackson, toughness. I think Justin Herbert's proven to be a very tough player. I need the top guy that I'm going to pay an astronomical amount of money. Jalen Hurts falls under this category as well, to arguably the toughest guy on my team. You saw tonight, like, no one has ever questioned Matt Stafford. He tonight got the living shit kicked out of him. It felt like the Bengals had 27 sacks. He got peppered, and he just keeps getting back up. Now, we can argue he can get erratic. Look like on his first pick, he's trying to throw like a no-look pass. Like, Matt, just throw it to your teammates. But you can never, ever question the guy's toughness. Last year, when his elbow's messed up and he's not playing, he's really, really injured. And that's what I want on my star quarterback. Toughness, and I've been saying this for a while in this podcast, is not something we talk about fast enough when we discuss quarterback attributes. And it has to be near the top of the list. Obviously, you can't play if you're not accurate, if you don't see the field, if you don't have the football IQ. But if you ain't one of the toughest motherfuckers in the league, you ain't going to make it very far. There ain't many softies playing that position who are good. Just not the way it works. And I think Joe Burrow, must-win situation for the Bengals, just kind of went like 1993. And I still enjoy that, even though his performance in the game wasn't that enjoyable, sloppy game. But I have a lot of respect for that guy. And I know the Bengals definitely do too. And like the Rams, like, I don't really know what to make of them. Based on the first 2 weeks, I'm like, they're clearly a lot better if Stafford's healthy, slinging around. And then you watch tonight, now on the road against a desperate team, him just getting killed. I thought he was just kind of all over the map. The picks, I know one pick got tipped, but God, when he's a little off, the ball ends up in the other team's hands a lot. And this team isn't as talented as some of the past teams to make up for that. Because if they were just on, they should have been up pretty big early in the game. I mean, Burrow, the first several drives looked horrendous, but so did Stafford, and they couldn't block him. And I don't care who you are. You can be one of the toughest guys in the league. Stafford is. If I hit you over and over, it's going to rattle you. It's the number one thing these coaches and these defensive coaches and these defensive line coaches talk about in these meetings. Hit the quarterback. Because if you hit them, I don't care if we're playing Favre, Montana, Marino, or Elway in their prime. If we're hitting them over and over, they're not going to play as well. Just a basic element of the sport of football. And they got after him. Now, I'm not ready to write off the Rams, but, at the end of the day, they're probably a little more average than closer to a playoff team. But who knows? They're still missing one of the best wide receivers in the league. My question is, he has this serious hamstring injury. Is Cooper Kupp going to come back and just look like the same Cooper Kupp? Or does he look like a shell of himself? We'll have to see that question answered whenever he does return. And is he a lock to return just off the 4 weeks of the pup? I don't think we know any of that information, but Aaron Donald still looks sweet. I'll tell you that. I'll promise you this. If the season ever did go sideways and they did want to unload and kind of reset, that dude have a pretty big market. So Bengals get a much needed win. Where do I want to go next? I was thinking about something today with Zach Wilson, because a headline today, Joe Namath said he's seen enough. Disgusted watching Zach Wilson. The moment the quarterback is not the guy, when you've drafted him high, you have to remove him from the situation. And the longer you don't remove him from the situation, you find yourself in the Jets situation. Last year, it was clear this guy, we can't win with the player. And the only reason they kind of kept going back to him when the team's wearing shirts of Mike White is because he was the second overall draft pick. If Zach Wilson had been a third-round pick, the loyalty would not been nearly to that level, right? And then this year, after the team had turned on the guy, obviously once you get Rodgers, and it was clear they were inevitably going to get him, at minimum, they should have brought in a legit backup to push him, but honestly, probably just removed him from the situation. Now, that's easier said than done. I think when you look at the 49ers, I said this from the moment they signed Sam Darnold on the first day of free agency, and Brandon Allen, who was Burrow's backup, didn't come that much longer, was like, guys, they're done with Trey Lance. Well, if you're done with the player and you can't really trade him then, you have to bring in contingency plans because this is not defensive line. And we've seen a lot of highly drafted defensive linemen not become good. Happens at, a lot of wide receiver, happens at a lot of positions. Well, you can rotate in and out, so you're not dependent on that guy. Well, when you came into the season, and this is why the 49ers traded Trey Lance, they couldn't make him their backup quarterback because they could never have one snap, Purdy on the ground, he goes into the game, because then they got serious problems. Now, Sam Darnold, they would still probably, who knows? He's not as good as Purdy. Maybe he's better. We might never know. But they believe that Sam Darnold is way better than Trey Lance. And so they got rid of Trey Lance, right? This team went into the season with an older quarterback that it's football. At any moment, like freakish things happen. Derek Carr slammed on the ground, hurts his shoulder. Last night, Mahomes, end of the half, rolls up on his ankle. Jimmy Garoppolo, Sunday night, holding his legs, bent back. Fuck, I don't care how, quote-unquote, soft the league has become from the 70s and 80s. It still can be violent, and guys still get injured. And at quarterback, unlike all these other positions, you are one snap away from being the full-time starter again. And the Jets only have themselves to blame because they refuse to, the emotion and the ties they had to that pick. Who cares that you drafted them second 3 years ago? It is irrelevant now. You held on. You're in the situation. This is your own doing. It's not anyone's fault Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Freak deal. Maybe the turf, maybe not. Depends who you listen to. But it is your fault that Zach Wilson is the backup. That is 100% on the Jets. So as this season continues to get very ugly, because the guy I watched, and I was watching a lot of that game, just because I was like, Belichick's really going to beat them for the 15th straight time, and he was cruising to a victory. And there was a play late in the game, Garrett Wilson running right across the field on like a drag route, and he didn't even get it close to him. And there are just basic elements to his, passing attack. When the ball leaves his hand, you have zero faith that it's going to get remotely close to where he's trying to throw. And then there's a lot of other running into sacks. It's not, obviously their offensive line is a work in progress, but Zach Wilson just isn't good, right? We know. And the team had to know. The problem is they didn't want to see it because they're too emotionally tied to the guy. Who cares? It's part of being a great executive is not being that tied emotionally to anybody. The guy better be a star if you're going to be emotionally tied to him. But when he proves he's not that good, like, the sport's hard. A lot of guys aren't that good at that position. Just because you use a second pick, like, you got to have a better backup. And there were a ton of better backup opportunities out there, and they refused to do it. So they're in this situation by their own doing. For a limited time, you can save 40% on NFL Plus premium annual subscription when you sign up through Plus Play from Verizon. Plus Play is a platform where you can shop, manage, and save on the subscriptions you already love, like NFL Plus. With NFL Plus Premium, you get access to live games on mobile, NFL Red Zone, NFL Network, and more. So you can watch multiple games all at once on any screen around you for updates. Never miss a touchdown. And for fantasy football players, NFL Plus Premium makes all the difference. Access to programming like Fantasy Live through NFL Network, Red Zone for tracking player performance on Sunday, access to live local primetime games, access to Fantasy Plus. Just go to Verizon.com/NFL to get NFL Plus Premium today. It's 40% off an annual subscription. That's just $59.99 for the full season. Get it before it's gone. And speaking of by their own doing, this team gets a lot of respect, man, because I was traveling today, so I had the opportunity. I wasn't at my office till about 4 or 5 in the afternoon to listen to a lot of other podcasts and just hear what the people were saying. And one pretty consistent theme on the Packers-Saints game was like, going to give the Packers some credit, but Carr got injured, so it's hard to know if they would have won. And listen, I agree, I guess. But the Saints defense has nothing to do with Derek Carr. The Saints defense has been excellent all season. It wasn't till garbage time last week when they allowed a touchdown to the Panthers, and they were shutting out the Packers through 3 quarters. So through 4, 8, 11 quarters of football in 2023, they had allowed 1 touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Their defense was lights out. And whether Derek was on the field or Jameis was on the field, they were dominating. And Jordan Love, man, and I've said this over and over, the chances, I bet against this working, just because history. You go from Favre to Rodgers to just another good player. When I was growing up, I've told this story before, and if you're my age, you watched it. Montana Young to Garcia. That's an incredible run. If your third quarterback is Garcia, a guy that's going to make Pro Bowls, you celebrate it. And the chances that he could even just be a fringe Pro Bowler, just the history would say it's slim to none. And I'm not even saying he's going to be. But you can't learn how to close deals in a classroom. You can't learn at practice just because in training camp I throw up fourth quarter, we're down 4, no timeouts, 1:20 left, how to actually do that in the game. You can rep stuff. You can try stuff. You can practice stuff. But I've always been a big believer, and this is what our motto is at Cal Poly. Some say it's the Harvard of the West. Learn by doing. And the way you learn by doing in football is to play. And I don't know how he's going to look when shit hits the fan or things aren't going well. I thought in the Falcons game, didn't play as great down the stretch. This game, it looked really ugly. I was ready to go, God, I don't know if this is going to work. And they're missing Aaron Jones. Watson hasn't played yet this season. They got a ton of other guys. Their inactive list look like some of the better players Aaron Rodgers played with. And this dude made plays, man. Made plays with his legs. The game-winning touchdown he made. I mean, he had the first touchdown he made with his legs was awesome. The 2-point conversion was sweet. Looked like Aaron Rodgers. The touchdown back shoulder pass kind of looked like Rodgers. Now, to be a good player in the NFL, it's not about doing it one time. Zach Wilson last year against the Steelers had one good game. It's about doing it over and over and over. And that's just to become a good player, right? That's just to become Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, like a guy somewhere 10 to 15. To be a star, you got to have elite performances 80, 90% of the time. So for this guy just to prove he can be your long-term starter, long way to go. But I say that's a big, kind of check mark. Fourth quarter, should not going well against a really good defense at home. Fans probably getting a little squirrely, make play after play after play, legs, arms. It's just the eye test. You don't need to be, John Schneider here or Les Snead to watch that guy and then watch some of these other quarterbacks and go, oh, he's way better than all those other guys that were drafted the last couple of years. The Fields, the Zach Wilsons, the Trey Lances, there's way more to work with there. Now, can he do it over and over? Only time will tell. But I thought that was a really impressive win. There was a moment after they scored the touchdown, the 2-pointer, I think to get it 17 to, what would the score have been? 17 to 11, where LaFleur comes over. And this is what we talk about all the time. The difference between defensive head coaches and offensive head coaches. A defensive head coach, no matter how good the guy is, can give rah-rah speeches, can give me some fist pumps, but they don't impact the scheme, the play calling. And there is something special when your head coach is the offensive coordinator, which essentially makes him also kind of the quarterback coach. It's all, bundled under one kind of area, even though you have a quarterback coach, you got other position coaches, but I'm the one calling the plays. I talk to the quarterback, and LaFleur went right over and boom, pulled out another drive. That was a big time win. Couple more things. Coordinators really matter. By the time you've heard this, everyone's talked a bunch of shit about Denver and them giving up 70 points as well as they should. And McDaniel looks like, his team looks like a video game right now. But one thing happened between the two guys this offseason. Mike McDaniel, because when he got hired, didn't have that much juice. Not many people were going to hire him. Different guy, definitely doesn't look the part, doesn't speak like other coaches. He was not a lock to get an NFL job, especially as quickly as he got it. So when he got hired last year at Miami, I'm pretty sure the organization forced him to keep the defensive coordinator. Rightfully so. They got rid of Flores. Their defense was really good. Last year, their defense was a joke. So he fired his defensive coordinator. Needed a guy. Sean Payton knew he was going into a job, right? Or at least had visions of returning. So when you have visions of returning and you're a guy like Sean Payton, your staff, like, you got a pretty good idea of some core pieces. And one thing Sean Payton really wanted to do, he said they had been talking about it, and the plan was for them to work together, was to hire Vic Fangio. And obviously, once he accepts the Denver job, Fangio was never going to take that defensive coordinator job. He had literally just got fired from them, right? And Sean Payton, I looked at some quotes today, had admitted as such in early February. I think it was at the Combine or maybe right before the Combine. He said, listen, I tried to twist his arm. I basically begged him to come, but he just wasn't going to do it. He'd been relieved of his duties a year before. And to me, like, when you take that job, if you're Sean Payton, you got to have a pretty good idea. This guy's never coming here. So who's going to be my next best option? And it didn't really feel like he had one, because I bet in his mind, this entire football season, maybe he didn't know he was going to go to Denver. Maybe they made him too good of an offer to refuse on his own when they gave him $90, $100 million. But Vic Fangio is going to be his DC. And then he goes to Denver, and Vic Fangio like, bro, I'm not going there. And McDaniel hires Vic Fangio. Because listen, now, I didn't know, just like anybody, that he could score 70 points. Who in a million years would guess you could score 70 points? I think, and I was thinking about it today walking the dog, if I was a team, if I was a coach, if I was a fan, I would rather lose 50-3, 55-3 than 70-20. Because even if you get in the low 50s, that's still multiple more touchdowns, 2 or 3 more touchdowns to get to that 70 number. And here's the other thing. And I know McDaniel, they asked him why he didn't kick the field goal to break the record. Listen, if you told me the record happened in the 80s or the 90s, it would hold more weight to me. I'm not trying to act like Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays couldn't play just because they played in the 50s or 60s. But I'm sorry, 1966 football, like, it's not really comparable. Having 70 points scored on you in 2023 is dramatically worse than what happened in 1966 and should be the new NFL record. Because that is something you never forget. And this gets back to Sean Payton. So once he couldn't get Vic Fangio, he hires Vance Joseph. Sean, have you watched this guy coach? Do you guys share an agent? How does this make any sense? What do you think is going to happen when Vance Joseph is your defensive coordinator? I understand. Like, your plan was to get Fangio. What you had to have a backup plan because you knew other people are going to be begging for his services. And I credit Mike, who, listen, I'm not trying to act like the 70-20 game was about Fangio, but in the macro perspective here, Vic Fangio is going to do wonders and give Mike a chance to win games like this week against the Buffalo Bills and a hot Josh Allen again. Playoff games against Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. It's not even just about individual games. It's about what it's going to do for you this year, next year, for the next several years. Look at Andy Reid ever since he went back to Spagnuolo. Their defense now is arguably one of, if not the best in the league, at least through 3 games, depending on what metric you look at. So having a high-end defensive coordinator when you're the offensive play caller, let's think about this during the week. You're not only leading meetings, you are game planning. You're the guy calling the plays. So the amount of time you spend during the week on offense, I would say, is even skewed that it would be for a CEO level head coach, because it's on you come game day. So guys like Sean Payton, Mike McDaniel, look at, I give a lot of credit to Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. They hire really good coordinators. When Sean McVay got hired, what did he do? Hired Wade Phillips, right? Then what does he do? Goes with Brandon Staley, who, for whatever reason, had a really good year. What does he do now? Raheem Morris. I watched the Rams defense playing really well. Kyle Shanahan, Saleh, D'Amico, Wilkes. Like, that's who you're going to hire? They're going to give you $90, $100 million. You're going to go with Vance Joseph, who, think about this, he also was the Broncos head coach and fired. Now, he's a Colorado guy, so I guess it's a little different, like going home. A little more time in between stints, but still. That's what I mean, you can talk shit about Sean Payton about a lot of things. Gutless effort from his team, but, like, that's who you're going to, pin your success on, because you're going to need him. because you have nothing to do with defense. I've seen you with bad defenses. Like your success as a team is very predicated on who the guy is coaching on that side of the ball. So Sean Payton's got serious issues. And last but not least, the Bills and the Chiefs are coming. It shows you sometimes, and listen, we're all human. You wait 9 months for week one. Week one happens. Chiefs lose. The Bills lose, both in prime time spots. Chiefs have a million drops. Kelsey's on the sideline. Chris Jones is up with the two Mafia guys. The Bills, Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles a minute into the game. They still can't win. Allen's throwing picks left and right. You're like, what? Is something off? Then 2 weeks later, they win this weekend by a combined 78-13. I didn't even really watch the Bills-Commanders game. Didn't need to. That was an ass kicking. The Chiefs' first half against the Bears looked like Alabama playing UC Davis or Cal Poly. That was a joke. That first half was every bit as bad as any stretch in the Bronco Miami game. It was that level. The Chiefs only did it for a half. The Dolphins did it for like 3.5. But it was just like, you guys are a joke. And one thing you see about the Bills, man, and this is my only question about them was, what's going on with Josh Allen? Well, last couple weeks, been good. Did throw a pick against Washington, ran for a touchdown, threw for a touchdown. Last week had 4 touchdowns. Mahomes looked brilliant. Kelsey now, we'll get into him in a second, looks awesome. Chris Jones, sack a game, looks sweet. Their defense, all those DBs they've drafted the last couple of years, making plays, they're good. They really are. And just sometimes listen, it's human nature. We overreact, but turns out those teams are fine. And I'm going to end on this. Morgan & Morgan, a player that made it look easy. This can only go to one guy. I'm not a huge Taylor Swift guy, though. Back to December, if you go to YouTube and watch the live version, I think at the CMAs like 15, maybe 12 years ago. Fantastic. Love that song. I'll never dispute her talent. I think she's cute. I wouldn't call her like most beautiful woman I've ever seen, but I get it. And her success as an artist, as a businesswoman, she's a movement in herself. The Swifties. Not even quite sure what that is. I guess it just means you're a diehard fan. Is that like being a Jets fan? Like I'm a Jets fan or I'm a 49er fan, I'm a Swiftie, same thing. But clearly when Travis has been talking about it through his podcast, like I think he knew. Like if my guess is they've been talking for a little bit longer. But on a day when the football wasn't that great, especially the afternoon slate, to open up that game with Taylor Swift sitting with the Kelsey's mom, and then he eventually gets a touchdown, and she says, "Let's fucking go." You can't make this shit up. I've said it. I'll say it every week. Best reality show on television. I see the Bachelorette or Bachelor is going like with the mid-50s version. What they call it, the Golden Bachelor or something. It's like a guy with kind of gray hair, a bunch of older women. That doesn't hold a candle to what you get in the NFL. It doesn't get any better. You can't script this. The star tight end on the Kansas City Chiefs, that are in the midst of a current dynasty, is dating the most popular, famous singer. That was cool. And everyone's joking about it. You got Walter Payton's son taking a picture of her. Travis giving the look. Andy Reid joking about they set her up. All the memes. It doesn't get any better. I found that so entertaining. I've read a million memes, tweets, Instagrams. It made a boring afternoon just put a smile on your face. And NFL, baby. Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift. Looking forward to them eloping here sooner and later. So Morgan & Morgan, player who made it look easy, it's got to be Travis Kelce. If you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/John or dial #law 529 from your cell phone. That's forthepeople.com/John or #law 529 from your cell. This is a paid advertisement.